Thank you for joining us for our first quarterfinal match here of the Dallas Open. Andrew Jessup, the 1 seed, versus Brennan DeCandio, sneaking in with the 8 seed, a perfect 6-0 run on day 2. Players tested for the event together. Brennan almost playing the same 75 as Jessup. They both have kept on the mulligan to 6 here for our first game.
Yeah, the last minute, Brennan decided to switch back to this Esper gift deck, but he's very familiar with what Jessup has brought to the table.
That starts off with an attune. Interesting enough for Andrew Jessup. This is, if he won here, this would be his second open win this year. It would be his second open win on release weekend. When Amonkhet came out, Andrew won the very first open with Mardu Vehicles that weekend. This is, you know, winning this event is a real testament to your, I think, deck evaluation and deck building.
Yep. There were some things you can't accomplish on the deck red sheet. Here we saw a big check for Jessup and no turn 2 creature.
Yeah, you mentioned how important it was that he feel more like an aggro deck and less like a mid-range deck. He has so many 2-drops and yet none of them showed up here. He will cycle a land on the second turn. Meanwhile, on DeCandio's side, he's playing a pair of tap lands. He does have a Fatal Push at the ready. It looks like Rander will present a target. Here is Glint Sleeve Siphoner. He passes. There's a green mana up. Andrew's deck does play 4 copies of Blossoming Defense, and there's one of them. Siphoner will be protected.
As you can tell from the cycling of the land, Jessup does have a mana-heavy draw. Possibly had the Siphoner on turn 2 and just waited for the defense for the backup there, just because he needs this one to stick around.
Yeah, if it was his only 2-drop creature, he really does need it, and it's a heavy cost to wait a turn, but one that he would have to take. But Brennan's still not going to let him have it. Here's Walking Ballista for 1, shooting down the Siphoner.
Yeah. Brennan knows how important it is just to keep Jessup off the battlefield in these early turns.
And you see how he played it. Brennan actually had a lot of options. He had Champion of Wits there. He actually has a Fatal Push still in his hand, yet he chose to use Walking Ballista that way. Andrew will try to replace the Siphoner, and Brennan uses the remaining mana to remove the other Siphoner.
And the wheels haven't started turning for DeCandio just yet, but Jessup is in a lot of trouble now.
Yeah, this is a great spot for Brennan to be. You see his hand is Land 4, Champion of Wills, Walking Ballista, and then Gate to the Afterlife. The idea that I think he wants to just remove Andrew's first 3 cards and then play Champion or play Gate, that is what he's setting up to do in this matchup.
Yep. Good chance you'd see him lead on Champion here. Some argument for waiting until the Gate is out there so that you get the trigger when the Champion dies. That can matter. It is also noteworthy that DeCandio did use Walking Ballista as a removal spell. That's the first creature of 6 for the Gate to be able to activate that.
Yeah, Brennan will cast Gate to the Afterlife. You know, a worry might be here. If Brennan just played out the Champion and Andrew cast Walking Ballista on 2, and now he does, that would have been probably the worst scenario for Brennan, as Andrew would get to kill the Champion of Wits and still have a creature left over.
Yeah. And Brennan was under no pressure there.
Right.
He'd killed all of Jessup's creatures, so getting the Gate there, ensuring that you get the trigger if and when the Champion dies is pretty nice for him.
So we go back over to DeCandio, draws another Champion this turn. He has 2 Champions in hand and a Walking Ballista. It looks like he'll just make his own Ballista for 2 here against Jessup. Shoots once. Does Andrew respond?
Trust me, you're going to want this.
If Andrew wants to get 2 points upstairs, or a point upstairs, it doesn't really matter. Once his first one resolves, Jessup's only going to get 1 activation.
Yeah, there is still the possibility of another Blossoming Defense out of Andrew. If that's the case, I'm to let the first hit 1 resolve here. So Brennan shoots once, shoots twice. No Blossoming Defense. Andrew will throw the damage upstairs in response.
Yeah, without the defense, you just let the first one resolve. You're only going to be able to target DeCandio with 1 shot anyway, because you do have to kill his Ballista if you just go upstairs, because you're just dying.
It's because Walking Ballista died. Brennan will get to draw and discard thanks to Gate to the Afterlife. He draws a 3rd copy of Walking Ballista and discards a Champion of Wits. So his hand is now Ballista Champion with 3 creatures in the graveyard. DeCandio's still at 20. This is really going according to script for him.
Yep, this is a great setup.
I guess a worry could be, remember, Andrew Jessup's deck has 4 copies of Hostage Taker in the main. He could always take Gate to the Afterlife hostage. It would it would mess up Brennan's draw pretty significantly.
Yeah, though notably Brendan, the first activation on the Gate, or the Gifts of the God Pharaoh, that does give him some value. If you get back Champions of Wits with that, you get to draw 4, discard 2.
Oh, yeah, I think Andrew, if he has his Hostage Taker, has to get the gate. He can't wait till God Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah.
And he'll do that. He'll take the gate to the Afterlife hostage. Go over to Brennan. He's got land 5 now in hand.
Unfortunately, Jessup can never convert that into God Pharaoh's Gift because no copies in his deck.
Yeah, this is a very defensive Hostage Taker. With one more land, Brennan could actually shoot down Hostage Taker and get his artifact back. He's a little short, so it looks like he'll cast Champion of Wits here. See a draw 2, discard 2. Got a land, and then one of his 4 main deck copies of Seeker's Squire here.
Powerful draft on common. 2-mana 1/2 with Explorer. Brennan primarily playing this card so that the top card of his deck is a creature. He can just put that right in his graveyard.
Sure.
Good setup for Gate to the Afterlife.
Discards. Looks like Island, Walking Ballista.
Very mana-heavy draw here for Jessup. He's playing his 6th mana source. Might just cast the gate out of having no other options.
And Hostage Taker swings. Brennan, Andrew casts Gate to the Afterlife. Can't do anything with it, but he doesn't want Brennan getting it back.
Yep.
Ryan, I'm calling sudden death, by the way. That was a card cast with Hostage Taker.
All right. Team
You
Matthias
got a
probably
you
wins.
got a bingo.
I don't think I can. I think I'm dead based on decks registered in the top 8.
Here is Seeker's Squire from Brennan. Gate to the Afterlife on top of the deck. Graveyard or hand. He'll keep that one on top, rather. I'll be very happy to draw that.
Yeah, plenty of creatures in the graveyard there.
Remember, Gate to the Afterlife not online just yet for Brennan. There are only 3 creatures in the graveyard. Here's Rogue Refiner for Andrew. So the Sultai Energy deck, this Rogue Refiner and Hostage Taker you're seeing here, those were the blue cards they added to Black-Green Energy for this weekend. Those were the 4s in the main. If he has some sideboard options and a Scarab God as the rest of his blue.
And with Brennan's life total being so high, that God Pharaoh's Gift, sure, it's not online just yet, but the ways that Jessup wins this game involve allowing Brennan to jump block.
Yeah,
his graveyard's just going to fill up over time.
Well, and we have to be concerned on Andrew's side here. So that's Brennan's hand is land 6 and a Gate to the Afterlife. At land 7, Brennan just gets to eternalize some champions out of the graveyard. Maybe he never gets 4 cards, but 4 or 6 creatures in the graveyard, but that's just fine. So Brennan does play land 6 and says go.
He's weighing a little bit about that because when creatures start dying, you get to loot with Gate to the Afterlife. The thing is, he's pretty fine just putting any creature off the top in the graveyard. And if it's a land, it's really the same whether it's this one or the one that he draws.
It's reminding that Gate to the Afterlife. Both players have one in play. Anders won't do much. 2 halves to the card. On the top half gives you an ability. Whenever any of your non-token creatures die, you gain a life, then you may draw, and if you do, you discard. So a little bonus there. The big one for Brennan, though, is once he has 6 or more creature cards in his graveyard, he may tap 2, sacrifice it, and go ahead and get God Pharaoh's Gift. Don't know if he can get Samut, but here we see Hostage Taker. So Brennan going to play a land, eternalize the champion. It just discards 2 lands, passes.
Another land on the grip as well. I think Seeker Squire, the last card.
See 3 ballistas in the graveyard.
And
Brennan.
Eternalizing that champion took a creature out of his graveyard. It's actually further behind from getting the God Pharaoh's Gift online.
Andrew makes Glintsleeve Siphoner. That brings him up to 9 energy, but I think the story here has just been Brennan's life total. Andrew needed to be an aggro deck, and he hasn't been aggressive. Was not able to. Brennan continues to go, draws a land here with the Seeker's Squire. Angel of Invention hit. off the champion. Brennan doesn't need to find God Pharaoh's Gift anymore. He's doing just fine with the cards he has.
Yeah, that is one thing about this deck. Sometimes you just end up in these games where you cast the creatures that are in your deck, and they're like pretty good. They're fine. These are all acceptable, certainly with the Glorious Anthem.
Yeah, Champion's great, Angel's great. Seeker Squire's, well, it's like, it's not really a creature.
It's attacking for 3 here.
Fair enough. All right, that Angel Invention giving all of Brennan's other creatures +1/+1s. This is a 3/2, a 5/5, and a 3/4. And you're gonna, looks like, double block the champion. You see he's gonna block the champion because he doesn't want to put more creatures in Brennan's graveyard. That Eternalized card is a token.
Yep. More creatures in the graveyard for the total count. They would also give loots off of the Gate to the Afterlife. This way, Jessup's going to get a couple loots off of the Gate that he stole with the Hostage Taker.
Yeah, it's Gate to the Afterlife reads non-token, so that Eternalized creature will not trigger. But it looks like 6 damage comes in onto Andrew.
Once again, standard classic
Aether Hub into the yard.
Top 32, you may claim your prizes at your scorekeeper.
Another land from Brennan and a pass. Andrew going to draw an extra card off Glintsleeve Siphoner. Went down to 14 there. It was 12, though he gained 2 life off his creatures dying from his Gate to the Afterlife. And right now, he's going to continue to hit 2 drops here. That's what his deck's mostly made of.
Yeah.
So Winding Constrictor, sure.
Yeah, really not much in the way of big payoffs in the deck.
And Rishkar. Yeah, and to make room for these blue cards, like Hostage Taker, Andrew's list this weekend does not have any copies of Verdurous Gearhulk. Oftentimes, that would be the card you're looking for to clean up here. I think his other big play would be if he could find Ballista Constrictor.
Yeah.
He might be able to stabilize with that, but even then it would be difficult.
Right. Now the following turn, it's only a small amount given the current state, but Brennan will start being able to gain some life with the Angel of Invention.
Sure. See here, Rishkar counters on the Siphoner and on itself. And just has to say go. It's back to DeCandio. 3 creatures in the graveyard, he'll draw. Draws his own Hostage Taker. For the record, Andrew's not the only player playing 4 of that card today. Brennan, DeCandio, a full play set of them in his own deck.
And that really shines when you get into games like this, where
Yeah.
you don't have your full setup, but your cards are just kind of matching up well.
It has been a mid-range fight, and the more mid-range a matchup gets, the better Hostage Taker's been. Now, I will say on the weekend, I've been more impressed with Hostage Taker in Andrew's deck than I have in Brennan's. It feels like it fits the idea better.
Yep.
But this card is powerful enough that I believe we'll see it in multiple decks as Standard goes forward.
Certainly.
Brennan's going to take the Glintsleeve Siphoner and immediately cast it. And yeah, there's no need to really to get God Pharaoh's Gift into play anymore. Brennan, I believe, can win without it.
Yeah, from the current board, at the very least, without Jessup drawing something, DeCandio can just keep attacking with its Angel of Invention.
Right, and that is because he made servos, he fabricated with it. It only is 2 damage per turn. You see Brennan going to choose a far more aggressive line. He's going to swing everything that can.
Yeah, and because of that no fabricate, the Angel is very vulnerable to a potential top deck walking Ballista.
So we see the blocks lining up for Andrew. It looks like Winding Constrictor can go ahead and take out a servo. It's got a 4/4 Rishkar. Let's decide what that wants to block. That looks like it's going to go in front of Seeker's Squire. That will give Brennan a loot off of Gate to the Afterlife. If that's so, there's still 3 unblocked creatures. Angel is 2, Champion is 3, Servo is 2. That's 7 damage. Andrew will drop to 6.
At just over half of his life total. And Brennan did just add 2 more creatures to the side of his battlefield as well.
Draw and discard. Chart a Course. Picked up for Brennan. Sure, he could cast that.
Yeah, drawing 2 cards, usually pretty good.
Yeah, and this is a nice card. We haven't seen as much of it this weekend as I expected we would. 2 mana, draw 2 cards, then discard a card if you did not attack. Yeah, lift. All right, we have a correction here. Andrew actually got 4 life. Can be Rogue Refiner from Andrew. And that's not going to find an out. So game number 1 on the draw will go to Brennan DeCandio. Andrew Jessup has been at the top of the standings most of the tournament here. Brennan going the opposite direction, but he's undefeated on Sunday and now up a game over to Andrew Jessup.
Yeah, and just kind of like we said, the games that Jessup wins are going to largely be runaways starting on turn 2, and he just had a slower start, and DeCandio easily out mid-ranged him. Yeah,
the moment that you mentioned there was no 2-drop, and that just, man, that hurt. And then on top of that, Brennan's first plays were Fatal Push, Walking Ballista, Fatal Push, Walking Ballista. If he can have those in his openers and just trade, that is so good for Brennan.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, let's take a look at the sideboards. We're going to start on Andrew Jessup's side. A lot of times out of the sideboard, he actually slows down his deck to become more of a mid-range deck. Don't know how much he wants to do that here, but he has 4 Duress, 4 Deathgorge Scavenger, 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt, 2 Negate, a Scarab God, a Spell Pierce, and then 1 Vraska Relic Seeker.
It's true here, as it has been true in every mid-range fight we've seen this weekend. The Scarab God is quite excellent here. Some argument for Negate's Spell Pierce to fight over the artifacts in Brennan's deck. Could reach for Vraska's Contempt for the Scarab God. Big find here, though, is Deathgorge Scavenger.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So they were actually working on the event together, and originally Jessup's list had a few copies of Aethersphere Harvester, and Brennan was lamenting here as they're getting ready for the match. He said, you know, they ran their deck list by me a few days ago, and Brennan's suggestion was, Harvester's not very good in your deck. You should play some more Scavengers. They're randomly good against God Pharaoh's Gift. And then, of course, he plays the matchup when he's playing God Pharaoh's Gift.
Yep.
But I really like the card. It just can eat creatures out of graveyards. With a Deathgorge Scavenger in play, I don't think Brennan will get to 6 creatures in graveyard for that Gate to the Afterlife.
It makes it tough.
So on Brennan's side, he's got 4 Duress of his own and 3 Negates of his own, so he sees a lot of the same cards. 3 Vraska's Contempt, and then here 2 Scarab God, a Fatal Push, which actually is his 4th copy, and then the only card that I guess Andrew's not playing, 2 copies of Cataclysmic Gearhulk.
Cataclysmic Gearhulk is pretty reasonable in the situations where Jessup has assembled a board with 3 or 4 creatures. You do reset a lot of that damage. I like that a good amount. Scarab God, of course, excellent. I think Brennan brings that in basically every matchup. There's a lateral shift in his strategy because his deck is kind of just eternalizing stuff anyway. And this one doesn't get hit by Negates or Abrades, so that usually comes in. Vraska's Contempt is a pretty nice one as well.
It's kind of fun, right? If it comes in every matchup, it makes you wonder if maybe it's just good.
It is just good. You can't argue that.
Yeah.
It is true that if your opponent doesn't have much in the way of game 1 interaction with God Pharaoh's Gift, it's just more mana-intensive version of your game plan. So it might actually fit better in the sideboard here, but yeah, it wouldn't be bad in game 1.
Right. So they're getting ready for a second game. StarCityGames.com, and we're going to tell you a bit about Star City Games Game Night. I know you've seen it before here on stream. You can get exclusive pins for playing in local tournaments all around the country. These prizes are given to you by Star City Games. It's October 1st, which means we've switched over the prize that you will win at a game night. The newest one is Vampire Night Fox, the 2/2 flying vampire token. You can get this guy as a prize by playing in your local tournaments. Next month, we'll be giving away a copy of the Tarmo Goat. Of course, that's the 0/1, is the base toughness and power of any Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, see a lot of those.
Sky's the limit from there. And in December, we have the next one is the Akroken Crusader. You can get signed up in time, and we can get that out to your store by December. So you can find a game night near you or sign up to have game night at your own store. StarCityGames.com/game night. So on Brennan's side, I like that he's a mid-range deck. And he's winning these mid-range fights. We looked at his sideboard. We saw the Scarab God. Those were copies 1 and 2. We had 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt as well in the sideboard. And 2 Cataclysmic Gearhulk. That is 4 5-drops and 3 4-mana spells. I like all the cards in the matchup, but I'm a little concerned about boarding in, when you board in 7 cards like that, that you might be doing things to the mana curve that make the deck not as good. Is there cards that come out if he wants to make this, or does he have to maybe not board in all 7?
So I haven't seen it be produced so far, but I'm pretty sure that Brennan started 2 cards that he probably won't be playing going forward. He has these 2 main deck Vona Butchers of Magan. I feel like these are significantly worse than the other 5-drops. It is a lifelinking creature. That's all well and good. The energy deck is pretty good at outsizing it, certainly with Winding Constrictor involved. It won't be doing too much.
Yeah, this is Vona Butcher Magan. Is a 5-drop. If you're not familiar with it, it's new from Ixalan. The 4/4 Vigilance Lifelink for 3 mana, 3 colorless, a white, and a black. And you can tap it and pay 7 life to destroy a non-land permanent only on your own turn. You're right, it's a nice one. It's like this utility 5, right?
It's an extra lifelinking thing against Ramunap Red, which I think is the most significant element of the card.
It's just 4/4 lifelink vigilance.
Right. This is no Blood Baron of Viscopa. Like, this is not a card that
white,
decks
black.
are lining up to play just because it's on color.
Right. So I guess that one he can board those out and put in another 5. You know, Cataclysmic Gearhulk or Scarab God. Yeah, it certainly seem better.
In matchups where your opponent's never killing your actual God Pharaoh's Gift, you can go down to 1 copy of that.
Right, I can find it from hand or graveyard. So I guess Andrew can steal it, if that matters.
That'd be bad news.
All right, second game, Andrew on the play again. Both players keeping 7s this time. They were on 6s for game 1.
I think it's usually pretty reasonable to trim Gate to the Afterlife. And certainly when you know that these Death Gorge Scavengers are coming in.
2-drop check for Andrew. All right, he's got one this time, and it's really the one he wants. Winding Constrictor is going to be the play.
Yeah. Brennan's holding a Walking Ballista. That won't do it.
No, he's going to play Seeker's Squire, Champion of Wits here. He'll put that in the graveyard and make his creature into a 2/3. Rishkar from Andrew. This is exactly, I mean, this Constrictor into Rishkar is the fastest draw his deck can produce. It's going to be very welcome here as he attacks DeCandio down to 16.
And particularly having this draw in a post-sideboard game, it's a lot tougher for Brennan to get set up if Jessup draws some of these sideboard interaction things.
Yeah, Champion of Wits the play from Brennan. But remember we saw game 1. It was Fatal Pushes and removal spell. Fatal Pushes, Walking Ballistas. Brennan had removal spells. If players in this matchup, if Andrew plays 2-drop, 3-drop creature and Brennan plays 2-drop, 3-drop creature, his creatures are so much worse.
Yep. Yeah, Brennan doesn't even have good blocks if he throws both creatures in front of either of these. At best, he can trade with Rishkar.
Yeah, especially on the draw, there's some pressure for Brennan to have Fatal Pushes. And Andrew is very much punishing him for not doing it. If you don't remove Winding Constrictor, it does some really powerful things. And from Andrew Jessup, Walking Ballista. He'll cast that. It's a 2/2 thanks to Constrictor. Use it to remove the champion. Swings for 8. No good blocks from Brennan.
Fully half of Brennan's life total.
Yeah, I mean, he's representing a turn 5 kill here. This is the 4th turn, and he has Brennan down, facing down lethal in a couple of ways next turn. You know, he might even have a Blossoming Defense to protect his board. We'll see Brennan drawing another land. He's got a Hostage Taker in hand. I believe that's his. That and Walking Ballista are his options for staying alive this turn. So here is Hostage Taker. He will target Winding Constrictor. He's hoping there's no Blossoming Defense. And for now, there isn't. The snake will go ahead and be stolen away by the pirate.
That is a sigh of relief there.
Yeah, I mean, he would have probably just conceded to the Blossoming Defense. But at 8, he's got a lot more work to do. He can't really block with the Hostage Taker and give Andrew back the snake.
Nope.
So, first of all, he hopes the Hostage Taker doesn't die. I mean, if Andrew has Fatal Push, he can just sacrifice the Ballista and Fatal Push the Hostage Taker due to Revolt. That would happen.
Yep. Looks like Jessup does have Hostage Taker of his own.
Sure, that's great here.
Kind of lining up how the next turn looks if he goes for this. As we know, he won't have Blossoming Defense backup. So you kind of have to get into the mentality of what happens if my Hostage Taker on Hostage Taker gets hit by a Hostage Taker. Anyway, this does set up for a pretty good attack on this turn. He could just have gone for the Seeker's Squire and then attack for 4, the block with Hostage Taker, or just taking 4. Both of those are good outcomes for Jessup, though this does have a higher ceiling. Yeah,
I guess that other play gives Brennan a few more options. A danger here would be if Brennan has another Hostage Taker, he can set off this chain reaction. That's pretty scary for Andrew. Brennan goes to 4. And I believe Brennan actually has that play.
Yep.
So we'll get to see that in action. We've seen this once before on the weekend. When both players start playing Hostage Takers, the board gets really weird. So Brennan takes Andrew's pirate, which that means Brennan's other pirate comes back, which gets to take another card hostage. There's this neat play here. If Brennan wants to try to play around another hostage taker, what he could do is he could have his hostage taker take his own hostage taker hostage, and then it flips which one's under which would means a hostage taker back from Andrew Jessup wouldn't be as strong. It's a really weird situation.
And this was a neat line. He just went for the walking ballista. As we know, the hostage taker is never going to actually take a walking ballista.
Right.
But this is a setup where he knows that nothing's going to happen to him if this hostage taker leaves the battlefield.
Yeah, this one. However, if the Andrew Jessup still has a great target, you see we're going to see there's another hostage taker for it. If he takes back the one with a taker under it, oh my goodness, this is just even difficult to say.
Or how about a lethal walking ballista
for enough? Okay. Thank you for stop. I'm glad you didn't play the second hostage taker because just saying that is ridiculously confusing. So ballista for 3, game 3. Let's go with that. So Andrew Jessup wins that one on a pretty aggressive start and one that DeCandio really couldn't recover from.
Pretty upset that the words hostage taker and pirate, none of them naturally lend themselves to an Inception pun, which I have to say is a failure on R&D's part.
So what? So you mean like if it was
we have to go deeper?
Oh, okay, just like quoting the movie.
Just like you just add Inception to the end. You've heard this joke 1,000 times. I don't know why you're pretending like you don't know it.
We'll go over to looking at the sideboards again. Can Brennan do anything to fight some of these faster draws? He gets to be on the play game 3. Right there, he curved out. The issue was just that his cards weren't as effective.
He was just down tempo. He needed a fatal push. That's the long and short of the game. And he only has access to 4. Everything else in his deck is just, less efficient. The virtue of being on the play, that'll change the texture of the game a good amount.
Yeah, it just gives him an extra turn. Facing, especially if it's Constrictor into Rishkar. That's the thing Brennan is most worried about. Getting an extra turn to get ahead of it seems great. Even so, if Brennan doesn't have a fatal push and Andrew assembles Constrictor Rishkar, Brennan may still be too slow to compete.
Yes.
It is that good against his deck. Still play a third game. Over on StarCityGames.com, you still have a chance to make it over for our weekly sale. All week we've been doing 15% off Judge Foil promos, like the ones you see here. You can get those right now from the Star City Games store, but that offer will end tomorrow morning, so make sure you do that while it lasts. And then check in tomorrow morning as we switch our offer every week at StarCityGames.com. You can find it at StarCityGames.com/weekly sale. First result is in the 3 versus 6 matchup is Tad Makareg and John Toon. The number 3 seed Tad playing mono red. Your winner 2-0 in the match.
Red deck on the play.
Looks pretty good. He's actually got Tad has a great collection of wins here. He has defeated Andrew Jessup, Jim Davis, and David Thomas in this tournament so far.
All right.
Jim and Andrew, between the two of them, lost twice lost 3 matches between the two of them, and both of them lost to Tad.
I'd be pretty delighted if Red Deck just won the tournament. I'm pretty into that, I'm not going to lie. Kind of a funny thing happened. The major update to the deck is Lightning Strike.
Right, replacing Incendiary Flow.
You were playing like Theros Standard back then. They printed Lightning Strike, and everybody was like, we had Lightning Bolt like a year ago. This is stupid.
So bad.
I don't want this stupid garbage double casting cost card.
Yeah.
And they print Lightning Strike now, and red players are like, yes, awesome.
Yeah,
I can't wait to cast Lightning Strike.
It's like, I think what happens already is the players say, we don't like Lightning Strike. I'm like, fine, we'll give you Incendiary Flow.
Like, give it back.
Like, you can have this, and we're going to only give you Incendiary Flow until you ask for Lightning Strike back. Another result is in, perhaps setting up a rematch of the Jessup War. Dan Jessup is your 2-0 winner over Gabriel Nicholas. He will be facing the winner of this matchup.
DeCandio with his fastest draw so far. Turn 1 Minister of
Inquiries. Nice. Making 2 energy. So this one's pretty nice, especially if he has a Gate to the Afterlife in hand. He will be able to mill himself at least twice. It helps him very much get toward those 6 creatures in yard. And just passes. And noticing a fatal push at the ready in Brennan's hand.
Yep. So the big check is for Andrew to have a 2-drop. And even if he has it, it's going to die.
Yeah, he has one. Brennan is not going to let him untap for Blossoming Defense mana.
Wow.
3 creatures in the graveyard for Brennan, and then he pushes away the snake.
It is above average.
But does he have Gate to the Afterlife? That's the next check. Looks like in his hand the answer is no, but he can go looking for it. He drew Champion of Wills. Or of Wits.
Someday you're going to
I'm gonna
learn
get
the
that.
name to this card.
I'm like 90% on it.
Kind of a funny thing, when that card first came out, I could never remember I always wanted to call it
It's like
Master of Wits.
It's like Clash of Wills, Champion of Wits. I don't know. They're both blue things. Another Minister of Increase puts creatures 4 and 5 in the graveyard. Here is the Champion of Wits. It's the blue one. He's smart.
Got it.
Draws 2. Draws another champion.
Champion of?
And discard Minister of Increase. You don't really need another one. One's good. This is the 6th creature, so as soon as Brennan finds that gate...
Minister of Inquiry's job is to show up on turn 1 and hit creatures with its activation.
It's basically Tome Scour
and
yourself.
then it's to be discarded and live in the graveyard after that. Chump block at some point down the line.
Sure.
If you're shy on options, attack for 4 at some point.
All right, 6 creatures in the graveyard for Brennan. Andrew still no board presence. That is a worry.
Produce 2 energy for a long tusk cub that you steal with the Scarab God. It doesn't really do a lot of things. It holds the deck together kind of in a weird way, and you will see that card matter if you see Esper Gift play against Ramunap Red, because it's a 1/2, and it blocks Bomat Courier.
That's nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, against red, it blocks and trades with things. So Andrew played a 3rd land and just passed, which there isn't that much instant speed in his deck. I think that's just an unfortunate situation.
Yes. It looks like his draw really not coming together.
But can Brennan find his payoff? He's got another champion to dig.
If he just hits a bunch of land drops and keeps casting champions, eventually he's eternalizing champions. It's not that bad of a spot.
Right. I mean, Andrew has to do something. Right. We saw game 1, Brennan never made God Pharaoh's Gift. And that was fine. Champion is the play. He will cast it, draw 2, discard 2. Looks like he picked up another Fatal Push.
And so you have to ask yourself if you want that.
Well, here's an interesting direction for Brennan. His hand is 3 lands, Walking Ballista, Fatal Push. So you could discard 2 lands, just keep playing these kill spells. Or you could discard the cards and just start naturally building your mana up to eternalizing these creatures. And I think right now Brennan has to pick a line.
Yeah. For now, though, his creatures are just living. So just keep attacking with them.
Looks like 2 islands discarded, so he's fine being land shy. Kept Fatal Push and Walking Ballista in hand. He got 1 more energy for his Minister of Inquiries.
If he can, he's probably just going to be trying to attack with that 1 for a while.
Yeah, I guess once he has 6 creatures in the graveyard, there's not too much benefit to having more. He might need more, though. Deathgorge Scavenger, the play from Andrew. That'll exile a creature out of Brennan's graveyard. Andrew will gain life. And actually, now he's down to just 5 creatures. So if he finds God Pharaoh's Gift, he may want to mill himself once again.
Sure.
You mentioned these Scavengers were very good in the matchup. Now, it's been a tough spot for Andrew. And Brennan's draw here, you know, he discarded those 2 lands. He drew the Scarab God this turn.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
So
The choices we made may be punished for them.
With Andrew casting this 3-drop here, you know he has access to Blossoming Defense. You have to ask yourself, do I want to get aggressive? DeCandio still has that Walking Ballista. He could go and try to shoot down the Scavenger. This ends up very poor if Blossoming Defense is in hand. And even if it works out, you're attacking for 5 against an opponent on 19. Good chance that this is the turn where DeCandio shifts gears, try to play a little bit of defense. You would rather have that land.
Yeah, I mean, it's shake of his head. There's some, you know, yeah, of course. He discards the 2 lands and draws his 5-drop. That's That is what it is.
Yep.
He'll swing with the champions. Andrew's certainly not going to block either of those. He'll go to 15. And Brennan's choices are Ballista and Fatal Push. He'll go with Ballista for 2. And is he going to shoot now? And that's his decision. Try everyone. Andrew's like, yep, try it again. Nope. Dinosaur lives.
Yeah, so this is Graveyard Hate, and it also just really changes the efficacy of DeCandio's game plan because this is going to gain 2 life every turn. Also make it a lot harder for DeCandio to produce Gate to the Afterlife and activate that.
I mean, Brennan's really hoping that Andrew's next play isn't another Death Gorge Scavenger. That would just, that would be a problem. Looks like Andrew's going to cycle a land. Don't think he found another Scavenger just yet. Brennan has 6 creatures in graveyard, so because of that, it looks. I'm guessing Andrew's going to have to attack here. He needs to go to work on that number. Here's a swing. He will exile. Looks like Hostage Taker, gaining 2 life back up to 17. So yeah, the Graveyard Hate in conjunction with the life gain really attacks Brennan on both fronts.
Yep.
I like this a lot. And is it another one? It actually is. Andrew has it. Death Gorge Scavenger takes care of a Minister as well. Andrew up to 19. Boy. Brennan's in trouble. He can still hit his land for Scarab God.
Well, he's no longer ever going to win this game on this cobbled together medium beatdown plan.
Or really on the Gate to the Afterlife plan.
Well, he has these blockers. The funny thing, though, is now Jessup can just start exiling non-creatures and making his scavengers into 4/3s.
Plays a tap land and says go. Does DeCandio. It does threaten a Scarab God next turn. 5 mana for Andrew. What is this?
Big Ballista.
Walking Ballista. Oh, make that 6. That's Walking Ballista on 3.
The full Triskelion.
Yeah. And look at this. He can remove the champions and immediately exile both of them.
Yikes.
That is so good. And that's what he's going to go for that. Shoot down a champion. Shoot down a champion. And then here come the dinosaurs. Brennan's going to Fatal Push one of them away, but the other one will swing in and get rid of a champion. Brennan down to just 5 creatures in graveyard again. He's going to take 3 on that hit.
Yep, and it doesn't really matter that he doesn't hit them both immediately because DeCandio's 2 mana short of bringing the other one back.
Right. And Scarab God is the play. Says go. Brennan hoping that this one survives.
And Andrew really wants to find a hostage taker.
That would be huge. Can he? Looks like no, but he's got something better. Here's a tune up to 5 from Andrew. And this one's out of the sideboard. It's a one of, and it's going to be so good here.
Looks like we have a Vraska waiting in the wings.
Yeah, Vraska, Relic Seeker, the play from Andrew Jessup.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that it's better than Hostage Taker, but it will do the job.
It is, yeah. This is real nice. He needed a removal spell, and he just doesn't have too many. Not for a 5/5 for 5. But Vraska's one of them. The -3 destroys target artifact, creature, enchantment, and replaces it with a treasure. He'll destroy it, and then immediately, Andrew's going to exile it with that scavenger.
That checks out.
Make a treasure, and he'll say go. So Brennan can't get Godpharaoh's Gift going. I guess if he draws one, he can draw it.
Find 2 more mana sources.
Well, no, he could be, no, not Godpharaoh's Gift. Gates to the Afterlife. He could cast it, mill himself for 3, and immediately activate it.
Sure.
He'd have to do something like that. We'll see what he does. It's going to be Seeker's Squire. Top card is Gate. Okay, now he's got to count. How many creatures will he have in his graveyard next turn? He has to go for it. He'll keep it on top. He has 5 currently. He's going to have 4 after next turn's attack. So
well, off the activation, both of these creatures are pretty good blockers to throw in front of that scavenger.
So Andrew can actually deny Brennan this play. If on Andrew's turn he uses, if he just kills Minister of Inquiry's main phase, either with Vraska or with Walking Ballista, what's Brennan's response? He can't mill himself because he needs his top card.
Sure.
So then that's the 6th creature in the graveyard. Then Andrew can exile it.
That's the 6th creature if the minister dies. If that case,
Right.
like you can't really,
Okay.
you can't just attack with a scavenger because then you just
Oh,
throw
then it would trade?
the Seeker Squire in the way.
Because then it'd be
that's a
back up to
creature.
6. Yeah.
If he has another scavenger, just forget about it.
Sure. All right, he'd need another one. See what Brander has. He'll put a counter on Walking Ballista. Deal 1 damage to Minister. Deal a 2nd damage to Minister. Get rid of the Ballista. So Brennan just has to let this go away. He can't really mill himself for 3, then he'd lose that gate. 4 more mana from Andrew. Does he have Hostage Taker? Oh, and he does. So Hostage Taker's removed.
That is
now there's
nice.
no blockers. Now Deathgore Scavenger eats a creature. Brennan can draw that gate to the afterlife, but he does not have enough creatures. And also he goes down to 8. He can cast Gate. That is not enough. And that's going to be the game and the match. Your 1 seed, Andrew Jessup, moves on.
Vraska makes it 2-2.